It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. My guest today is Jamie Lagarde, CEO of Sedera Health. Jamie is a successful serial entrepreneur and experienced executive with a consistent track record of rapidly accelerating top-line growth, improving profitability, and building successful organizations. His functional experience spans new technology implementation, launching startups, streamlining operations, and he is seasoned in leveraging his background from a variety of executive management roles. As CEO of Sedera, Jamie brings over 15 years of healthcare experience and over 20 years of operational and information technology expertise to the team. His daily mission is to empower individuals to form better collaborative partnerships with their healthcare providers and to radically change the way we pay for healthcare, one member at a time. Jamie Lagarde, welcome into the corner office.
Brant, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. And as we were just talking a little bit before the show, boy, what an interesting time for the health industry. And we're going to be releasing this, of course, a month or two from now. But we're about 3 weeks in, I guess, to a national shutdown for the most part. I know that you're living in or near a major metropolitan city, as am I. And we're all kind of sequestering at home. And gosh, we want to talk a little bit about that as we get a little bit further into the podcast. But we live in very interesting times, don't we, Jamie?
We're not bored. And obviously our thoughts and prayers are with people who are actually dealing with this terrible virus.
Yes.
And thinking of the amazing healthcare workers that are helping these patients on an hourly to every single day. But yes, we live in very interesting times, and how do we keep our companies operating in such difficult circumstances is taking up a lot of cycles these days. So.
Well, we're going to get a chance to talk about that. And we hope that those that are listening at home are healthy and well and sheltering in place. And obviously, with regards to enjoying this podcast, we always start our podcast, Jamie, just learning a little bit about you and in your early years. Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and what your early family life was like.
So happy to. So I grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, which is one of the places that's struggling right now with this virus. But I had an amazing childhood, but I would say the best way to describe me in my early years was I think I wore out my father asking him so many questions. I mean, Dad, what does this do? How does this work? Do you have another one of these? Or just wanting to understand. And a lot of it was science.
High degree of curiosity, it sounds like.
Annoyingly so. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, whether it was my father I call him a kitchen architect. He designs amazing kitchens for in remodels and in new homes and oversees their implementation, installation. And so I got to go on to lots of home improvement projects and walk onto all these different projects. And it was fascinating.
Was he in the construction industry or design or kind of both?
Well, really the design of a kitchen. He'd work with various manufacturers on the outside to kind of bring his vision to life for his client. And so he still does that to this day. But it's everything from the cabinets to the appliances, the countertop, and then it's functional design. Like if someone is really in there and what is the best organization for the kitchen for somebody who's cooking in there every day versus somebody who wants to set it up as kind of a show space. So that was the world that I grew up in.
So was he an entrepreneur? Did he run his own company? Was he working for others?
He started his own business, which really kind of was a spin out of his father's business. When his father passed away, he inherited that business, which was a mortgage and loan business. But then he kind of used the mortgage and loan business to kind of bootstrap this kitchen design company.
Cool. And what about mom? Did she work from the home, or was she involved in the business as well?
She was involved with the business from time to time, but I'm the oldest of four. Okay. And so I was a handful all by myself, let alone my three siblings. So between the four of us, she had a full-time job and a half.
I can imagine.
Helped my dad a little bit in the family business, and then was a piano teacher. So so that was she. I would say she had the
full-time job.
She had the full-time job and the harder job. And I might get in trouble with my father for saying that, but it's the truth.
Oh, I got it. Great. Well, listen, we're both members of C12, a peer advisory Christian owners business group. I'm up in Connecticut. Where are you a member, Jamie?
In Austin, Texas. So
down in Austin, right. So kind of at the heart center of things with our founder, or rather our current CEO and our founder not too close by. Tell me a little bit about, the way Christ played a role in your upbringing. Were you born into a Christian household? Was that a path that you found later?
No, I was lucky enough to grow up in a household and have surrounded by a family that faith life was very central to it. So grew up Catholic, still practice that today, and went to some amazing Catholic elementary school and a Catholic high school, and
Jesuit inspired, I presume?
Yep, a Jesuit high school in New Orleans, and a small little elementary school in uptown New Orleans called Holy Name and of Jesus. And it was, I thought so much of the experience that my wife and I have three kids, and they all go to a very similar school to what I experienced in New Orleans here in Austin, because it was so foundational for me personally, for Christ to be an active part of the education process that we wanted that for our kids.
Very fundamental. Awesome. Who were some of your other inspirations in childhood? Was there a favorite coach or teacher or none or priest that was perhaps involved in your life?
Well, I would say the first one that jumps out to mind for me was a math professor by the name of Mr. Metzinger, who I haven't talked to, and I can't even remember the last time I saw him. But
high school, middle school,
high school. It was high school, and he was just an amazing math teacher, and he brought it. I was already a nerd, and loved math and science, and growing up in my early years, I was definitely shy and quiet, and that changed over time. Now people say they can't get me to shut up, but Mr. Metzinger he brought math to life for me, and in a way that I could see how the things I was learning there could really solve problems. And I think one of the things that I tell people all the time, I feel like I have a pretty limited skill set, but one of the things that I'm pretty good at is solving problems, and math is a tool that I was able to say, hey, wait a second, I can figure out how to get things done with the things that I'm learning in Mr. Metzinger's class. So my path of engineering and science and computer science, if I were to see him anytime soon, I would give him a lot of the credit.
Well, a nice call out to him. And we'll make sure he gets a copy of the podcast, because I'm sure you'll love to hear about that. The teachers I know, the ones I've had in the past, and remembered, I remember more the teachers I had than necessarily the tools or things that I've learned, but they can have such an impression. Were you a good student in school, Jamie?
I was an okay student.
Good in math, it sounds like.
Good in math. I was always good in math, and got in, and then started off. Some classes were harder than others. I was never a fan of biology. the smell of doing the frog
The frogs,
in biology.
yes.
It's
The
like
formaldehyde. Yes.
I could not. I was never headed for medical school.
You know, all you had to say was that, and that 10th grade experience came back into my nostrils. I think I had the same aversion.
I mean, I should have walked around with a clothes, what do you call it? Clothespin on my nose, and I might have gotten a better grade in that class. I didn't do bad, but it was definitely not an A.
Yeah.
But I knew that wasn't the science path I was going to take.
Yeah.
But I would say after having experiences like Mr. Metzinger and some, whether in college, as I started to take classes and have experience outside of school, that my grades actually continued to improve. When I got to college, my best year and a half in college were my final year and a half in college. And It was the most difficult classes, of course, your 400 level classes. Yeah. But it was because I had a laser-like focus of what I was trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. What about outside of class? Sports, music, theater, any of those things interest you?
I love sports. I was I think my parents were afraid I'd get injured if I played football, and
rightly so. Now that we see the statistics, 20, 30 years later.
Absolutely. The sport I locked in on and still play today is tennis, and loved that sport. Would travel around at an amateur level and play various tournaments around the state. A guy I went to college with saw me play football in an intramural team and saw me play, I guess he was really in football. And he came up to me, he said, Lagarde, he says, you're crude but effective. And so that's been
story of your life.
That's been kind of my tagline when it comes to sports.
I love it.
That's how I'm perceived. So I was good enough to get to score some points or support my team, but I was never going to shower myself in glory and do anything professional by any means.
Right. What about entrepreneurial things? It sounds like, Dad was an entrepreneur. Were there things that you did in your younger days, whether it was a paper route or selling Christmas cards that you were involved in and making some extra pocket money?
I started off, actually, I didn't want to, I was very introverted in those early years of high school and college. As a kid, I had a Texas Instruments, I think it was like a TI 994A or something like that. It was an old computer. Right. Well, it is, it was new back then, but it was, and I learned basic programming on that thing. And I would spend hours working on that device. I didn't have any kind of memory device to be able to store the programs I wrote. So after I turned it off, everything would be gone, and it might be hundreds of lines of code. And so anyway, but I mean, those were the things that I got involved with at an early age.
Oh, you went on to college, University of Mississippi. It looks like you got two bachelor degrees, right? One in engineering, telecommunications, and one in computer science. Tell us a little bit about the choice of going there and, some of the things that you experienced during those years.
It was, for a little while, I thought I was actually going to head towards music school, but I really was drawn towards engineering more. And, I had some family members who had gone to the University of Mississippi, and so, when you
wouldn't have been a natural choice growing up in Louisiana, right? I mean, you've got Tulane and lots of other good schools nearby.
There was a lot of good choices. I mean, I had a lot of people from high school that went to LSU, and that's obviously a fine school as well. An arch rival, though.
Of course.
But no, the University of Mississippi had the various programs that I thought I might want to venture into, and I got a scholarship from them, and so it was, and not too far away from home, so I could drive home every once in a while on a long weekend, and so that was kind of led to the choice.
Was that an academic scholarship or tennis related?
No, definitely not tennis. Remember that crude but effective comment. But it was an academic scholarship, awesome. So I went there and jumped into engineering school, and it was electrical engineering. And the reason I could say the reason why I have 2 degrees is because I switched majors. I was on the electrical engineering path till my junior year. And I remember a particular class where I was studying about the mathematics behind how a transistor worked.
Mm.
And I was just bored out of my mind. It's like I did not care about how the mathematics, and that sounds awful, but I just didn't
You're
care
more
about.
interested in what it did, right?
I'm more interested in what it did.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the engineering side. Yeah.
And
yeah.
so I switched to computer science and had a lot of hours to make up, but it was absolutely the right call, and loved making the change. But when I was wrapping up my computer science degree, I had all these electrical engineering hours, so it was only adding about 12 hours additional to get a second degree in general engineering with an emphasis in telecommunications. So,
why not? Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I might as well do that as well.
What was the first job out of college, Jamie?
So the first job out of college, I did an internship during college for a company that really helped my focus in college. I left from Ole Miss and took a job with a startup company in Austin, Texas, that was doing electronic medical records work for hospitals.
Oh, interesting.
And
so you got into healthcare quite early, but I know you came back out of it again later, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
You've done a little bit of a weave, but that's just your first job was in the industry.
It was that intersection of software development and software engineering and healthcare, and got exposed to the working world and what life would be like in Austin and a company like this. And I absolutely loved it.
Awesome.
And so I did this internship. I scared my parents because I took what was supposed to be a summer internship and extended it all the way to December.
Wow.
And they didn't think I was going to go back to college.
Right.
They didn't think I was going to go back to college, but I made a commitment and I did it. And I went back in January, and then I got back in January and I said, I'm going to load up with as many hours as I possibly can and graduate as quickly as I possibly can. And that's what I did. I moved off campus and got it done. And I went back to work for that same company.
Yeah.
They must have liked me enough. I must not have messed up things too bad. So I went to work for that first company, that same company, as a systems and network engineer.
Did you have leadership responsibilities fairly early on?
I did. About what happened was, they brought me in to be to support all their computer systems and the network that they were operating there, but they quickly wanted to get me involved with customer implementations and professional services. And so what happened was that they started putting me in two different places, and so we had to hire up a couple of people to support some of the routine IT related tasks.
Right.
So I had an IT team that I managed while I was working with clients, around the country on the healthcare side.
What are some of the earliest leadership lessons you learned, say, from bosses and mentors? Good and bad. Sometimes it's the observation of others and what they do can be some of the more meaningful impacts on how we work with others. Do you recall any of those early memories?
Yeah, boy, did I have a lot to learn. I would say that the two that really struck out to me early on was keep things simple and clear. Keeping things simple and clear was really important for when I was communicating to members of the team.
Right.
Being a new manager, I was sort of taken back that how often I wasn't doing a good job communicating, or somebody wasn't hearing the direction I was saying. And I needed to make sure that what I was saying was simple and clear, and two, it made sense to go. If it was important, I should go over it more than once.
Right.
And so that for me was kind of a key. Those were some key things that I learned to do, and I found pretty helpful.
Do you remember the first time you started managing people?
I do.
Yeah.
That was at that same company, and it was probably about a year in after I started, and I was interviewing for the role, and it was the first time that I had, my manager helped me write up the job descriptions, but I was interviewing these guys who were just, were about to graduate, and they were just 2 or 3 years younger than I was, and at first I was like, am I ready to do this? But from the hiring process to onboarding them into the company, those were all brand new experiences for me, right there in my mid-20s.
So we talked a little earlier on about you kind of got into healthcare to start, weaved out, and then came back in. Give us just a little thinking behind, your affiliation with the industry and, kind of what you've liked about it, and bring us up to speed with, what you're doing today at Sedera.
Happy to. I like being part of a challenge. I again, talking to this kind of core part about me of I like trying to solve big problems and innovating in those areas where there's inefficiencies. And so that's what I'd love to do. And so this intersection of for this company that I was going to work for, the software company, and then healthcare just made a lot of sense. And I've loved being in the healthcare space. I've left it for a while. I'm now in it now as CEO of Sedera. I've been CEO now for about 3 years. Was around from the beginning to take our founder and chairman, Dr. Tony Dale's idea and bring it to life. I think when I met him through a board member I'd worked with previously, and he had done his research and development on this idea in another company, and he was ready to take it into a new enterprise. And I was there to kind of, okay, we better go incorporate and pick a name and go from there. And it's been an amazing ride, the best role I've ever been in. I would say that every role that I've had up to this point was to prepare me for this one.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what Sedera does, because you've got a very unique positioning in the market.
Sure. Sedera is a medical cost sharing community. So people come and join our community to share their medical bills. And what we do is we provide a non-insurance approach to healthcare. So instead of getting an insurance plan through a Blue Cross Blue Shield or United Healthcare or Cigna or Aetna or any of those companies that are well known, you join a community of people, of like-minded individuals that are willing to share each other's medical bills. If you've got a bill, you can submit it to the community, and then the community will fully share that bill. And it's individual members working together. John's got a medical need, and Bill will send his $300 to John. And we do that in a highly automated sort of way for this member-to-member sharing. And we work with small businesses and individuals all around the country. Today, I think we've got about 26,000 members in about 48, 49 states. And there's just a lot of people who are frustrated with the cost of healthcare, or had a healthcare solution from their employer and they're no longer with that employer, and they're looking for a cost-effective solution, and they'll be able to come on board Sedera at maybe 50 to 60% savings over health insurance.
Wow. That's awesome. And I think you work very closely with the C12 group, right?
I do.
Corporately.
We do. I'm, been a member of C12 now off and on since Sedera started. I wasn't aware of C12 until I started this journey with Sedera, and it's been such an amazing blessing to be part of this organization.
Yeah.
I just had my C12 meeting yesterday over Zoom.
We did that. Yes, we all are. Yeah.
And it was a great meeting, great meeting to share with everything that's going on in the world right now. But C12 has been, just to be able to talk with fellow CEOs about what's going on. And some of them are clients. I mean, we've got a good number of C12 companies that are members of the Sedera medical cost sharing community. And, it's been wonderful to be a part of an organization like C12.
Has. Yeah, terrific.
I know you feel the same way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was part of the founding member up here in C12 with Bill Jolly, who I know was involved with Sedera for a while. His wife ended up getting, I think, another job, and they took over her health care plan, from what I understand. But, he spoke very highly about it. In fact, that's when I first heard about it, when Bill was sharing his background with you. Is Sedera, officially a faith-based company? Is that integrated into your core values and your mission?
Well, it's definitely, so the way I would describe it is Sedera was started by some very strong believers but our mission is to make medical cost sharing open to everyone and not to be a matter of faith. And so medical cost sharing has been around since the 1980s, but it has specifically been in these various faith communities. And and the vast majority of these sharing communities do a really great job for their members. But Tony, our founder, Dr. Tony Dale, and myself and others that kind of helped launch Sedera all felt very strongly that our calling, our mission from the Lord was this shouldn't be a matter of faith, and we should be an example of a community of working together, of biblical sharing amongst each other, regardless of what someone believes. And so if someone wants to join the community, we're not asking them any faith questions at all. We take a broader approach to membership. Yes, you have to agree to certain things,
right?
Healthy lifestyle, and we want you to care about your healthcare, and we want you to be an active participant. We don't, you have to do extra things to be part of the community.
Yeah.
To get that savings, we need our members to take an active role in the shopping of non-emergent healthcare. Emergencies, go where you want to go.
Right.
But we do need our members to do certain things, but it's not a matter of faith, and by design, we're not asking people about that.
Yeah. And is Tony still involved in the business, the original founder?
Tony is actively involved. He's our chairman of the board, and I talk to Tony every week, if not multiple times a week. His wealth of experience in healthcare economics is incredibly beneficial to our company in its early years, and now as we continue to grow and expand. Tony's also the chairman of the board of his other company, the Keras Group. So Tony's a very busy guy. Right. He's involved with mission work and all sorts of just amazing projects. But time with Tony that our team has is every single time an incredible benefit to the organization, to the community.
Well, let's just take a couple of minutes as a sidebar, because I'm sure you and Tony have had several conversations about the coronavirus and how it's impacting your families, your communities, your work staff, as well as your customers. How do you kind of boil it down for us? What do you see in this, and kind of what's your perspective on how this might even change healthcare moving forward?
Well, it's if for the last 2 weeks. It seems like every day something is shifted. And in some days it's been incredible shifting of things that have been going on in this country and frankly the world. First and foremost, we're a team. The Sedera team is we're in the business of service and serving our members. Right. But if we're not in good shape and we're not healthy, we can't serve our members. So we took very quickly, we took some actions to safeguard our employees and their families, and we shut our office down, put everybody on remote working. We were fortunate that we were set up to operate this way. We're set up for remote working. Some teams work remotely from time to time already.
How many total employees do you?
About 75 now.
75, yeah, right.
So we were pretty well positioned to support this type of work. Obviously, when there are times though it's really helpful to be able to jump into a conference room and discuss something.
Right.
And you can't do that right now, and for good reason. So there have been some shifts. So, but number one, we wanted to make sure that the people who were taking care of our members were okay. So we took care of that. We jumped into remote working, 100% remote working. So that was step one. Step two is we started kind of picking up the pace and communication with our members about COVID-19.
And how many members does Sedera have today?
Sedera's got about 26,000, 27,000 members around the country. And so, but I mean, everybody's concerned. I mean, how can you not be concerned every time you turn on the news, and whether you're going directly to the CDC's website or CNN or Fox News, whatever.
Opening your inbox, right?
Opening your email inbox.
How many COVID-19 emails have you gotten today, James?
I mean, probably 30.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe 30.
2 weeks.
30 since we started this call today. You and I started talking.
Exactly.
But people are scared, and they want to know the latest information, and things are changing so quickly. And so the next thing we did was pick up the pace of communication with our members to say, hey, we're here to support you. We've taken these steps to safeguard our employees, but you need to call us. let us know. We expanded our office hours so people could contact us by chat over the weekend for a period of time over the weekend, which I think members appreciated.
Right.
We built some specific COVID-19 resources with one of our partners so that so our members at no additional charge could talk to an expert on COVID-19 or, a virologist. It's part of our product is we bring in an expert second opinion service. And so they have this offering where there's a help desk and where our members can access the latest information on COVID-19 just as part of their standard membership. So we rolled that out. It's just really staying in touch with people and let them know that we're here for them when they need us.
Do you see some structural changes, moving forward as you think about your offering and or, kind of how we go about living our lives? I mean, this won't be the last virus, right? We know that there's more of these coming. It's kind of a state of our 21st living, I think, 21st century living.
I think you're right. I think the changes will not only happen in healthcare, but it'll happen in society. It's hard to imagine going to a music festival with 50,000 people right now, or any time in the near future,
or even a movie theater for that.
Or
matter.
even a movie theater.
Netflix is doing a great business, from what I understand.
yeah, I'm sure they are. And so I do think this is going to change things.
Yes.
The trend for virtual medicine. If you
Teledoc.
look at the Teledoc and those are primary care visits and episodic primary care visits.
Right.
But even what's called virtual primary care, where your principal doctor, Brant, might be somebody who doesn't live in your live in your area that you never see in person.
That's right.
And so there's a growing number of our members that have their primary care physician, the main person they see, happens to be available by text, phone, and video chat.
Right.
And I use my direct primary care doctor that I use, and I pay a subscription to see him. And that's an awesome, way to obtain health care.
Right.
I get a lot of value from, but right now he's had to shut his office down because of COVID-19. So how do I interact with him if I need him? I can text him, I can call him, I can video chat with him. He can call in prescriptions for me. He can order lab tests, and I can do anything that I need to do. But it's a different way of purchasing the healthcare that we all need. And so I think that the trend that has been already going on of virtual healthcare will be accelerated because of this situation.
I totally agree. And I'm seeing it in my business too, Jamie. Work-life balance, of course, is what we've called it for the last 10 or 15 years, where we've had many more remote workers. Some companies embrace it, some haven't. Now that those that haven't have to embrace it. I'm in the midst of 2 or 3 searches now at the moment. And I've told my clients, look, we can continue with this, but you have to be faced with the reality that everything is going to be done remotely, including you hiring of this person, with you out potentially meeting him or her and being willing to be able to take that gamble. And I've got a C12 client that we're on that path today. And, and there's a lot of advantages to that. Why does a CFO who currently lives with his family in St. Louis, has to pick up and move to San Francisco, right, where he's got 2 to 3 times the cost. Kids are in high school, and it'll, probably triple his salary just to be down the hall from a 60-plus-year-old CEO. That CEO's got to say, you know what? I think I'll keep that CFO in St. Louis. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
And we're seeing some trends already, and we're trying to kind of get out ahead of that as well. That, remote hiring, obviously the remote interviewing process is already fairly well developed, but the remote hiring, even without a personal interview, I think is now a sign of our times. And, keep the sales guy in Austin, keep the CFO in St. Louis. There's a lot of benefits for everyone to do that. And, the cold reality of it is, and this is what I'm finding with a lot of folks who are now working at home versus, I've been doing for 10 or 15 years, is they actually work a lot more. They put a lot more hours in, and whether that's good or bad, that certainly does help productivity over time. Getting structure around it's important, but I think there's going to be just some real significant workplace changes. So anyway,
thank you
for your perspective on that. Tell us, shifting back a little bit, tell us a little bit about kind of how your leadership has changed. What would you say is, kind of the evolution of your leadership over time now that you're in the corner office?
I would describe my leadership style as kind of player coach. I put a great deal of focus and effort on the hiring process. I've been burned, frankly, of not investing enough there and either having the wrong person for our organization, or more likely the wrong person for a really great person in the wrong chair on the bus, right? And so for me, as I'm working and building out a team, and I was employee number one, and now we are at 75. We made a few missteps along the way, and I trace it all back to not spending and investing enough time on the hiring process. It started to cause a problem in sales hires, and we went through about 3 sales hires where it just wasn't working, and we brought in somebody to kind of help raise our game in the hiring process around salespeople specifically, and it made a huge difference. But anyway, as far as my management style, I like getting involved with people. I do a one-on-one with all of my direct reports every week for 45 minutes, and I find that to be incredibly useful. The remote working is a bit of a challenge from a cultural perspective,
right,
and keeping people in touch and feeling like we're together in a team. But even doing the one-on-ones remotely, like people are having to do today, and seeing each other over video chat, still is very, very effective.
It is. Yeah. It's been awesome. What would you say is kind of unique or perhaps unusual about the Sedera culture?
It's the way I would describe the Sedera culture is very passionate about the mission and what we're trying to accomplish. We are. I think we've done a really good job so far, and it gets harder as we continue to grow, to keep this atmosphere of like, hey, we're all in this together, trying to serve the community, and we all just we're going to work hard together, we're going to have fun together, we're going to treat people with respect, and we may not always agree on a particular topic, but we're going to get to a solution and move forward.
Yeah.
There is no lack of passion about healthcare in our offices. And so if anything, there's too many opinions, but I would far rather that than apathy. I think one of the things we've done really well is people are bought in for the vast majority of our team. And gosh, I can't think of a single person who isn't, is just so focused on the mission at hand, and I think part of that is just because of the industry we're in. We've seen so many people hurt either financially or otherwise due to not having enough options in healthcare. Look, health insurance is great. We just believe people should have more options, not less, when it comes to their healthcare choices. And Sedera is not great for everybody, but I'm going to say it works for 8 to 9 out of 10 people, but it's not 10 out of 10 people.
Right.
And we want to be the new normal in healthcare. This space is desperately needed. New ideas in the space are desperately needed, and we think our solution is part of it. And that's what our team feels. And so I think that's a really wonderful thing for us.
What do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in and hire?
I'm a big believer in the 3 areas that I'm looking for, and and they're not my ideas. That I stole them from Patrick Lencioni, if you're familiar with him. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I love to have folks that are emotionally intelligent. They can read the members of their team. They know how to they're really good communicators, both verbal and nonverbal. And so that emotional intelligence is really, really important. We're looking for people who have really strong work ethic. One of my favorite words in the dictionary is persistence. Nothing in the world takes the place of persistence.
Right.
And so want somebody who's got an engine it gets into that passion for what we're trying to accomplish. And then the third thing is humility, right? Look, I'm learning every day. I make mistakes every single day. If a project goes well, I'm sure it could have gone better. I have no interest in blame. I'm just focused on, and I try to have our team feel this way, that, hey, that was great. Okay, let's on to the next. What can we do better the next time around? And so, and then when we do make a mistake, let's own it, learn from it, and move on.
Move on. Yeah, awesome. Well, Jamie, time has just flown by, but we do have one last question that we ask all our CEO guests, and that's, what career and life advice would you give to someone who has their eyes on the corner office and perhaps wants to join you there someday?
I would say that if I could go back, another way of asking this question would be, what would I tell myself, from the 21, 25-year-old version of me? And the number one piece of advice I would give would be that your education plan doesn't end when you get your degree. And I think back at all the time that I had before I was married and before I had 3 young boys that were now homeschooling as of yesterday. And which is that could be a podcast
that's
in and of itself.
Podcast.
That's a whole, we won't go there. But I think that's taking this always learning approach. Things are changing so fast. And I just, when I hear about a candidate that is, hey, I went and did this, or I did this online class, and they didn't have to do it, but they did it. Boy, that right there almost moves the resume into the next pile.
Yeah.
That exciting. Characteristic alone. So that would be the number one piece of advice I would give.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jamie Lagarde, CEO of Sedera Health, thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office today.
Brant, thank you so much for the time, and stay safe and healthy, and look forward to catching up soon.
Same to you and your family.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.